coming to get you, Barbara.
Here's some money. Go see a Star War.
But I'm trying, Ringo. I'm trying real hard to be the shepherd.
Welcome back to Long Walk Talks. My name is David Hensley. I am the owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions, and I am joined, as always, by my two co-hosts, Stan Wilson Lee.
I'm actually in shorts.
And Chris Wilson Barnes.
They say misery loves company.
That explains this podcast. So, I just want to give our listeners a warning right now. It is that magical time of year in South Carolina once again, where it is hot as balls outside.
It's awesome.
We are in a small studio where it gets very warm. So the air conditioner is running, and you're probably going to hear some background noise, and I'm not sorry for it.
I thought you were going to warn everyone that Stan was in shorts.
Well, that was going to be my second warning. Don't bury the lead. All right, so today we are going to be continuing our discussion of the View Askewniverse with the film Clerks 2, directed by Kevin Smith and released in 2006. And it follows probably Smith's second favorite duo, Dante and Randall, first obviously being Jay and Silent Bob, as they are forced to leave their jobs at the Quick Stop and RST Video after a fire and go to work for Mooby's Fast Food, and shenanigans ensue.
No, Shenanigans is a different restaurant.
Stop it. And that's... I don't really know how to describe the plot of this film. This is one of those things like we talked about with the cartoon. This is one of those things where you can't really describe it without, like, you either have to give a general overview of the movie or you have to go beat by beat. There is no in between. So let's start off with our first topic, which is this movie is basically a 90-minute sitcom.
Kinda.
I mean, it feels to me like 3 episodes of a standard television show just edited together. Stan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. I mean, because it is broke up into 3 distinct sections, it appears, and all of them could be episodic in a sense, and they could run a whole arc, in 30-minute episodes. So yeah, sure, why not? It could have been 3 episodes of the animated series, if they went that route,
I suppose at 97 minutes, it's more like 4 episodes.
Well, 4 episodes. Sure.
Yeah. Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think at 97 minutes, it's his trimmest movie ever.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he uses the time well.
He does, yes.
As I was trying to describe to these guys earlier today, I feel like part of the reason I've been so frustrated with this View Askewniverse experience so far is I feel like that's the Clerks 2 experience is what I was expecting from everything else before it. And the fact that the other films were so different than this is jarring to me. Clerks 2 is peak Kevin Smith, in my opinion, in this weird, almost sitcom format. Like, you could break this down into a very special episode in which Randall learns a thing or two about racism. Or a very special musical episode in which Dante learns to dance.
True that.
And an episode where Randall and Elias spend 22 minutes arguing about Lord of the Rings versus Star Wars.
You can say what you want about Jesus, but leave the rings out of this.
Right. Oh, man. That was really it for as far as the first topic goes. I was just shocked watching it again last night and realizing, wow, if Kevin Smith had stuck to the television format, yeah, you would have lost some things in translation to television. But as we saw with the cartoon, he could pull it off. Like, yeah, we probably couldn't have a donkey show.
Hey, interspecies erotica.
Interspecies erotica.
But I feel like, as a whole, like, this movie could work on network TV.
Sure.
Just minus a lot of the swearing.
I believe I saw, when I was looking up stuff about it, I don't know if it was, I think it was the New York Times, the review blurb from it says a movie with a filthy mind but a great heart. Mm-hmm. And it's true.
I agree.
Absolutely true.
I agree.
And I would say 90% of that heart comes from our second topic of discussion. Is Rosario Dawson the best thing to happen to the View Askewniverse? Stan?
We talked about this earlier. She's the best thing to happen to any universe to me. And we were going through all the stuff that she's been in, and she's been basically in every...
Yeah, she's the connective tissue for every nerd's universe, yeah.
And I think she's made all those universes better places to be by her appearance and by her spirit, because every time she appears, it's like she is having the most fun, that she's having the most heart, like you guys are saying, and it's like, it's just, yeah, I think she does elevate. I mean, she elevates the character, the Dante and Randall characters. She elevates them to a new place where they hadn't expected to go, and I mean, she elevates everything, every scene that she's in, and I think she does.
Chris, what are your thoughts on?
I think she's a good addition because she always seems to pick projects that she just enjoys, and just she doesn't chase after any sort of role. It's like to elevate a profile. It's mostly she's like, yeah, this is cool, I'll do this.
I feel like her presence somehow adds a legitimacy to the movie.
Yes.
And this is coming off of movies that have like star power, like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. Yeah. In 2006, Rosario Dawson still wasn't a big household name, but just like you said, Stan, the energy that she brings to this movie, like you said, it elevates it, I think. You put her in the same scene.
She wasn't a huge star, but was this the thing she did right after Men in Black 2?
Oh gosh, that's right. She's in that universe too.
Right, yeah. I forgot she was in Men in Black 2.
Men in Black 2 was like 2004, I think, right?
2003 or 4, yeah. And this was right after Sin City as well. That's when I first became aware of her.
That's probably why her name got thrown into the mix to be Becky. Mm-hmm. So those things probably raised her profile. And I think what you're saying is absolutely true.
There was a point near the end of the movie where, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this movie, it's 15 years old at this point, so we're going to be talking about spoilers, frankly. But there was a point at the end where Dante proposes to her, and she climbs into the front seat of his car and starts making out
from
with
the
him.
drive-through window.
From the drive-through window. Yeah. Extra impressive. And I was watching this and thinking, what was Brian O'Halloran's thought process as this was happening? The man who had been in a handful of movies was... I don't think you could really call him like a professional actor at this point, honestly, as suddenly...
He is.
I mean, okay, but it'd be like any one of us being put into a car and told, in this scene, Rosario Dawson is going to be making out with you.
Well, Randall has that question, basically.
Yeah, he
has
does.
Where he's like, how do you do that?
But just like, outside of the context of the movie, just on a meta level, I just wonder what it was like for Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson to suddenly have to be up there with in the same scene with an A-list star. Yeah. I just imagine it had to have been jarring for the two of them.
And I don't know if you remember, well, I'm sure you guys noticed because you guys are bright guys, but
we're bright young men. Is that
bright young men? When she climbs into the car from the drive-through, Elias is behind.
Oh yeah, no, he's
yay!
Yeah,
my hands are raised up.
Meanwhile, there are cars behind them going, "What the fuck is happening?"
Elias is joyfully true. It's like he loves this moment.
If I was in one of the cars behind them, I would not care how happy this moment was. I'd be like, "Can you get the fuck out of the way and get me my McMovie sandwich?"
What's happening? Oh, I think the guy in the drive-thru proposed to the girl. Well, that's great. I need my fucking burger.
I need my burger.
Yeah, I have to get back to work.
Yeah.
We were talking about how great Jeff Anderson and Brian O'Halloran are, especially when you compare it to their earlier performances. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's what it was, that like they had to step up their game.
Yeah.
Oh, that's 100% what happened. I listened to the commentary, and they talked about when Rosario Dawson joined the mix. Everyone I just started doing their absolute best and stepped themselves up on
And everybody in the cameos had already, Ben Affleck had grown. Ben Affleck. Jason Lee had already had boosted his profile in films, and I think he had already started. He had done My Name Is Earl.
He was
by that time, wasn't he?
Stopped in on a day off from My Name Is Earl
Yeah,
to do that.
so he was
apparently
already...
that character he played, Lance Dowds.
Dowds, yeah.
Lance Dowds. It was supposed to be Matt Damon, but it was a scheduling conflict, and he couldn't be there.
Yeah. So everybody had So it's like these were the two leads were the ones that weren't known.
No,
so it's like they had to boost everything for everybody else. But Rosario Dawson, I think. I totally agree that she's the one that.
If I was either one of them and Kevin Smith told me, oh, and by the way, Rosario Dawson is going to be in this with you, and I looked at the script and saw all my scenes with her, I'd be Googling how to get an MFA in acting.
I know, right?
How fast can you get an MFA in acting? Yes, she is delightful.
And there's not one moment in her stuff where, and we talked about this earlier too, it's like, in any of her stuff where she's playing on the knowledge that she is the best, and she's just so real and natural and just downright joyful to be in the movie.
Even when she is handed like the sitcom soap opera type stuff, Dante, I'm pregnant, it still feels natural.
Yeah.
She's
wonderful. Yes, I totally agree with you that she is. And I think everybody else in that movie involved in that film, Mosier, Smith, Muse, I think they all said, yeah, we just raised our own bar. So it's like, if we had a bar to raise, we rose it.
We have 4 more topics to discuss, and I'm just going to throw them all out. We're just going to spend the next 80 minutes talking about
this movie.
No. We're going to spend the next 80 minutes talking about how great Rosario Dawson is.
You're going to talk about that.
She's my wife,
She's
one of my first wives.
Work.
All right, so we will move on. We'll probably continue. We'll take every topic as an excuse to gush about Rosario
Of course
Dawson.
you will.
But my next note/topic of discussion is sober Jay is much better than regular Jay.
Yeah.
And also, this is the perfect amount of Jay. Mm-hmm. After 2 films in which he and Silent Bob were the leads, Dogma's arguable, but they're definitely leads.
It was more than usual in Dogma.
Yeah, it was more than usual, and then
because it was a serious step up from one scene in Chasing Amy.
Yeah, and then Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back comes along, and they are the main characters. So to put them in the background again, I feel like really works in this film's favor because this is them at their best.
I agree.
I don't know if I could have handled old Jay doing the Goodbye Horses scene. I just feel like the energy would have just made it so much more obnoxious. But something about sober Jay is endearing. Mm-hmm. Is that weird?
No, because sober Jay, A, knows how to play a stoner.
Yeah.
And B, is also sober, so he's hitting his marks and hitting it and getting it right.
Yeah. He also only says, I can't remember which of the catchphrases it is, whether it was Snoogans or Snoochie Boochies or what. He only says it once in the entire film.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I think he does
God.
the nom.
At the beginning, I think after the song.
Right.
Yeah.
But he has a new one with the "oh."
A new catchphrase, yeah.
And it's so appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. We're just kind of blasting through topics. This is not like we're watching Schindler's List or
I know
something.
I put in the group chat, based on the opening of the store, I would never ever want to eat at that Movies, even if they weren't putting things in my order.
Yeah.
It's like, despite knowing like who Dante and Randall are, Randall especially, it's like without even knowing that, it's like you watch the opening, no one has gloves on when they're prepping anything.
No.
But does that ever happen?
At least
in fast
at
food.
the very, they wear gloves.
With the exception of last year,
they wear gloves.
Yeah, they're supposed to at least. Of course, Movies like had a weird layout. When I am inside of a fast food restaurant, I'm really not paying attention to where my food is being assembled.
Yeah.
Most fast food places, you can't look past the counter and watch them putting your food together. Whereas with Movies, it's almost like you're getting dinner in a show.
They could...
literally, in some cases in this movie, customers were getting dinner in a show.
There were people positioned in where the midway point between the counter and the door would be, who could talk to people at the prep station.
Yeah, very strangely laid out fast food joint.
On top of that, the hours are weird based on everything that happened.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get there. But first, we're going to talk about a very important discussion
That's
topic.
14 hours with Rosario Dawson. Just a reminder.
We'll get there. So,
He's getting there.
answer me this. How, in the name of God, does Dante Hicks keep getting women? It was one thing in the first movie where he had a steady girlfriend and was going to leave her for his ex-girlfriend. Now, all of a sudden, he is engaged with a woman who appears to be wildly in love with him, who has apparently gotten her family to agree to
Give him a house.
give him a house and a franchise,
yeah.
a car wash franchise. But he's also in love with his boss, who it's worth pointing out is Rosario fucking Dawson, who let him have unprotected sex
on a
with
prep
her.
station.
How the fuck? And I wrote this note around the time Randall actually asks him in the film. It's like I was connecting with the movie on a deep level. I was like, how the fuck does Dante keep getting women? Like, yes, he is a likable character, and Brian O'Halloran is a very charismatic actor, but Dante, like, as a person, does not seem like the type who should be getting all these women.
Him and Becky. Oh, Becky is played by Rosario Dawson.
Yeah.
His boss. They actually have a conversation about him being, how do I, the fugly guy, get somebody like you?
The word "chud" is thrown around.
And
3 times. In true comedic fashion, Dante either refers to himself or is called an ugly fucking chud.
Yep.
3 times. Which stands for cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers, if you are not aware.
Which is also a great movie, by the way. Just like
So what is it about Dante? Like, where is the magnetism? Where is the sex appeal? What? This is it. This is where the podcast falls apart. I ask a hard-hitting
I don't
question.
know.
it's like, Kevin Smith has the same thing about himself and Jennifer
Schwalbach, yeah.
Who plays the fiance in this, So it's like, I'm not sure if there is an answer. I guess
Kevin Randall's
Smith
his mouthpiece and Dante's his incredible, unfathomable luck with women.
charisma, yeah. And
That's
I think
fair.
that might be he might have the looks of whatever, but his charisma is like a 18.
Well, also,
and he rolls 20s, natural 20s for every savings throw for charisma.
Also, I would say that Dante is clearly someone who wants to be a people pleaser when he wants something.
Yeah.
And he's very eager to please when he tries.
And to Brian O'Halloran's credit, he is not a bad-looking dude.
No.
The calling him an ugly fucking chud is unfair. I think I may have answered my own question, though, because in thinking about it, Dante is a very different character when he's separated from Randall.
Yes.
He functions like an adult in all of the scenes in this movie. Because in the first Clerks, I don't think we ever really see Dante separated from Randall.
No, but here we get to see him interacting with other people, especially Becky in the beginning.
Yeah, we see him interact with Becky several times, and we see him interact with Emma, his fiancée.
Mm-hmm.
And all the times when he is not with Randall, he is a very different person.
Yeah, I think what the thing with that is, like, he's around Randall since they've known each other since childhood. He just falls back into those patterns, and you're right, he's just a different person.
And that realization makes the ending much more sadder to me. That he and Randall are going to be essentially together forever now.
Yeah.
I don't
But
think
with
it's
Becky
sad.
there.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's sad.
Becky and their son, or their child.
I feel like there's a good argument both ways about how that goes.
Yeah.
And the fact that Randall ends up, he totally approves of Becky.
Yeah.
Which is kind of new in there. And, it's like, it's really hard for him to approve of Dante's women, And so for him to get to that point as well. So if they end up together, and Becky has no problem with them, being together forever, that she's like good with that, and she realizes that while they're working at movies, So it's like, so this is like the perfect woman for Dante and Randall's
And Randall.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're a throuple.
Well, what makes her and her work with Randall, I think, is just as a boss, she doesn't take a shit, and she's present, and she helps reel him in, and it's like, but she at the same time, she's not saying don't be yourself. She's just saying reel it the fuck in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also didn't really get the impression that Randall really disapproved of Emma. He just had a weird thing with watching them make out.
Yes.
Well, he was just, he didn't understand how third of a wheel he was being.
Right. Yeah.
Because for him, it's uncharacteristically naive to him just be sitting there watching them make out.
Well, his character did really take a huge step back in this movie.
Well, before it took a step forward, but yeah.
A lot of steps forward, I think.
Oh, I don't know. Again, this is a topic that we're going to discuss later, but in the first Clerks, Randall wasn't stupid. He was lazy and he was abrasive, but he was not a stupid person. In Clerks 2, Randall is outright stupid at various points in the movie.
I don't think he's stupid.
Unaware of things.
Unaware, naive to the point of...
I would say willfully ignorant.
Willfully ignorant, but he does realize. It takes him a while, but when he realizes, then he goes. But I think he doesn't mind playing the third wheel. And I think Becky's the first one that doesn't mind him being the third wheel.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, that's a fair assessment. But we'll come back to Randall's...
And Becky's played by Rosario Dawson, by the way.
Yes, she is. We'll come back to the topic of whether or not Randall's character was derailed in a little bit. Yeah, I guess that answers how does Dante keep getting women. So my next question is this. Where did this Kevin Smith go? Where did he come from, first of all, and where did he go? Because none of his films after this, this is such an outlier, both in the View Askewniverse, but also in Kevin Smith's filmography at large.
I would say it came from the fact that he had to work so much harder to make this one happen. Because he talks about that in the commentaries. About how it was the hardest. I mean, he had to really sell, I think mainly Jeff Anderson and a bunch of other people on coming back to it. And he knew it wasn't going to get off the ground if key people didn't approve of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he had to work it really hard to a point where everyone was like, okay, yeah, I think I'll do this.
Because we got one film to go after this, and that's Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Reboot. Yeah, sorry, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, which is itself a very different film than all the rest. It's very much a reflection of an older Kevin Smith as well as an older Jason Mewes. I mean, Red State, I never saw Cop Out. I guess that would probably be the closest in his filmography that came to this kind of sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
But he also hated it.
Yeah, and from what I understand, Cop Out is terrible.
The only control he had was in directing in that one, I think. So.
Yeah. But yeah, none of his quote-unquote horror or horror-adjacent films have the same kind of vibe. I just
Didn't something have to do with, his... Because isn't this where the feud with the Weinstein started happening, or with, with Harvey taking over his stuff, and I said, no, this is where I'm going to go take my stuff out on the road and produce it myself, so I have total control? Or is that later?
That's later.
That happens later?
Yeah. I just keep using the word peak, but that's the only way I can think of to describe it. This is Smith at his peak writing, which the script still has issues.
Right.
And still has a lot of weirdness to it, but story-wise, it's better than the previous films. It's his best direction.
I agree with that. Yes.
Best cinematography.
It is really good.
The cinematography I had never really paid attention to in the times that I've watched this movie, but it's really fucking good. Mm-hmm. His musical choices, the beats that he takes, all of it is solid. And I just kept wondering, especially the farther into the movie I got, where did this go? Why haven't we seen anything else like this from him?
I mean, back him coming back to the View Askew universe, you mean, or the idea because Red State I think is really tight, but
Red State is a very different.
It's a very different movie, yes.
For a man who loves comedies and loves dick and fart jokes,
Red State's not that.
Red State isn't that. Neither are any of his other films. Like this is, he hit his stride here, and I'm just wondering, like, did he do it and he was done? Like, can he say that this was his movie? Chris, what do you think?
I think you answered your question because there's such different things. He approaches them differently.
Mm-hmm.
View Askew, I think he approaches inherently differently than anything else he touches.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's his little universe, his little playground. So he just he lets himself run a little more wild than he would on other projects.
Yeah.
Even in his spoken word stand-up stuff, he ventures a little out of that bounds too. So I mean, because he's doing stand-up comedy, he's gonna do the dick and fart jokes and stuff. But especially after he had his heart attack, there's a lot of him saying, okay, I'm 50 years old, or I'm at this point. I guess he would have been almost 40 with Clerks 2. He hadn't reached 40 yet, I don't think, but I think he was close to it. But I think he was okay. This is my last dick and fart jokes, specifically. It's like, and I'm gonna do the best dick and fart joke I can do.
I would just love to see 2006 Clerks 2, Kevin Smith's sense of humor and storytelling sensibilities combined with today's mature, wizened Kevin Smith. I want to see him make that film. Mm-hmm. That kind of buddy comedy, feel good, but still raunchy, but still introspective. With what he had to say about friendship in this film.
Thank you. Yes.
I'd like to see where else he could take that and what other themes he could explore. Because, as we were saying earlier, this took his love of bromance to its logical conclusion. Yep. This provides context, in my opinion, for all of the other Dante and Randalls that we saw. Yep. 2.0, 3.0, Bartleby and Loki, Brody and T.S., Banky and Holden. The way that Dante and Randall's relationship is so cleanly defined in this film gives context to all the rest of those.
And you get a verdict. You get that last moment, them almost breaking up, you get a verdict of why these bromances have been written this way or have been performed this way. And it's like, oh, okay. It's like we understand now. We understand why there's this version of the character, and then we understand now why there's this version, the two people in it, and why they do each other, what they do for each other, and how they are with each other. That's wow.
I don't want to hear about
I missed the word.
I don't want to hear about your fan fiction.
But no, just the idea that we get the conclusion, we get the we get the understanding of why he created these types of characters. Mm-hmm. They're fleshed out, and where they're very stocky, in the sense, they're stock characters and they're archetypes, earlier, but now we get the full formed Dante and Randall, mm-hmm. and they actually have conclusions, and I really enjoyed that from that.
Curveball question, Chris, what's better, Lord of the Rings or Star Wars?
There's only one return, and it's of the Jedi, not the King.
This has always bothered me about this movie, that Kevin Smith takes so much time to espouse his opinions on Lord of the Rings when...
And it is, if you're ever curious, it is his opinion, or at least it was at the time, because if you go watch The First Evening with Kevin Smith, he does that bit that Randall does about walking the ring, answering a question.
Yeah.
That whole argument seems to exist solely so that he could have that one Lord of the Rings fan throw up
he lets
for no apparent
and he lets them
reason.
take their pot shots. But then he ends it with upsetting a Lord of the Rings fan so much that he pukes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Randall's so proud of it.
It's that part of the movie has always been so fucking nonsensical to me. Like, pop culture references and pop culture criticism, I get, are part of the View Askewniverse, but just the fact that he made fun of Lord of the Rings so hard a guy threw up.
The only reason it makes sense to me is that it's just another thing that Elias loves for him to shit on.
Mm-hmm. That and Transformers.
Yeah. Oh God.
Are we talking about Elias? Because
poor Elias.
Because
he just really hasn't come up yet.
Okay.
Because again, poor Elias.
But the idea that, I was talking earlier about how these characters are fleshed out for the first time. They've got meat on their characterizations. Even Jay and Silent Bob have moments of vulnerability and
well, they've earned
reflection.
those over like 5 films.
Exactly. So. But for me, Elias is the first original character that he writes complete and fully fledged out right from moment one. So
Arguable because.
And he has the most distinct arc.
I don't know that he's fully fleshed out. But he is sympathetic.
He is sympathetic,
yes.
but he also exists solely to be the butt of jokes.
He is.
I wouldn't call that a complete and fleshed out character.
That on the surface, I might agree with you that he's there for the butt of jokes. But the thing is what he allows Randall to go through, and then we get him to the end of the movie where he's at the donkey show, and he goes through that whole coming out process, and
he smoked 2 blunts.
He smoked 2 blunts
and drank what appears to be a beer.
Yes, and
we've seen you do this.
Yes, he has his coming of age moment, and he's already. And I was talking to Chris about this, about how instantaneously he's become part of the familial group of these central characters in the View Askew universe, and he's the one. Well, with the exception of Rosario Dawson, he's the one that does it the quickest, and becomes part of that group.
Well, they've been working with him for a year, so...
Yes,
and I think the biggest argument against that is if we had made it to the end of this episode and had never once mentioned Elias... No one would be surprised. And if at the end Chris had gone, oh, wait, we never talked about Elias. Oh, you're right, we never did.
I think Elias
All right, well,
is one
thank
of the
you
greatest
for listening.
characters he's ever written, that Kevin Smith has ever written. I really do believe that.
That's a stretch. He is basically Randall's little brother that he bullies constantly.
Yeah.
But
his character arc is
as
that
much as we've talked about how badly, like Joy Lauren Adams is written, or that Jason London was written, or that
Jeremy London.
It's Jeremy. That Jason Lee was written at the beginning. It's like what he was able to give Elias. Let's say it's the most well performed introduced character, because whoever the actor is just makes Elias so sympathetic, and he's the one I believe he's one of the first characters that, especially male characters in Kevin Smith movies, that we do sympathize with, we do like, and it's like,
I like him, but he's still a dork.
But he might be a dork, but he's honest in his dorkdom, and he grows from his dorkdom, and it's like, and he's a dork like we're dorks,
Now,
because we have those arguments.
I let you say all that and move some goalposts just so I can say this.
But no, come on. It's like,
hold on, let Chris.
You talk too
long. I love
it's
Elias.
Gone.
No, go ahead.
He talked too long. It's gone now.
Yeah, I win.
That's not how you win an argument, bud. No, I mean,
in today's climate, maybe it is. But
this ain't Facebook.
But yeah, I think Elias is wonderful.
He's a fun character, yes, and the actor whose name I can never remember is very good.
Trevor something. I can't remember his last name.
Trevor something. It's a well-written, well-performed role for what it is, but is it groundbreaking in any way? No.
Of course it's not groundbreaking, because it's that, like you said, the bullied best friend, Oh,
I'm sorry. I remember now. I let you say all that because I just wanted to bring up that essentially Elias's arc is fuck pillow pants.
Yes, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Again,
and
pillow
I mean,
pants.
if you define a character arc as they are different at the end than they are in the beginning, but part of that arc is just because they got drunk and high, that's not really a character arc.
But
that's a character getting drunk and high.
He makes choices
to get drunk and high.
Well, yes, but to go from one point in his existence to grow from that because of things he's learned and taken on from this group of. And you're going to disagree with this, but I really think group of people have this really true sense of love for each other. So it's like, and Elias has become part of that family group. And I don't think they can exist without each other.
Well, negative experiences bond people faster than positive ones. And you can tell how fast they had to bond because of working in that fucking movies, which is clearly not a moneymaker.
The Donkey Show not being exactly what they thought it was going to be.
That movie is clearly not a moneymaker. We'll get there, though.
Yeah.
Man.
Your love for Elias I think it derailed me and Chris's train of thought.
But I'm also a Return of the Kings fan. A Lord of the Rings fan. So it's like I would have been probably saying one ring to rule them all.
I am too.
And when he does that, when Dante proposes, he does one ring will rule them all. And I was like, yes. And like, I would have probably been cast as Elias if I was up for that.
Cast, hell, you are Elias. Again, I have watched you smoke a joint and drink a beer and act a fool. Now, thankfully, you've never jerked off in a public place, as far as I know.
Wasn't he sobbing while he did it?
Yes, he was sobbing while jerking off and saying, I'm sorry.
He was saying, sorry, Jesus. That's
I'm
right.
sorry, Jesus, while he cried and jerked off. Yeah, that's a good character arc.
It's very funny. It's very funny. And
I did point out to Stan, it's funny that Randall and Elias's relationship is also, it just kind of seems like a nice little also inside joke, because I pointed out that in around 2002, I think Smith produced a movie that Jeff Anderson wrote and directed called Now You Know, and Jeff Anderson gave himself basically a side role, and the actor who played Elias was his best buddy in the movie, and that was kind of and he was playing like a character that was completely different from Elias, and they were just they had their side bits as characters, and so basically they recreated that friendship differently in Clerks.
And Elias is the one that completely makes Randall speechless.
He does leave Randall speechless. That is
only
true.
Because
he's dumbfounded.
He's waiting to hear everything about Pillow Pants so he can go out and tell Dante all about it.
But the thing is,
in front of customers,
it literally shocks him.
It truly does.
Yeah.
Because that point in the movie when Elias speaks, it's supposed to shock everybody.
We may be just throwing, because we're now talking about specific moments, and so. But these are truly, truly great setup scenes. They're really well done scenes. And the jokes are new for Kevin Smith in this sense. And the characters that are supposed to be the straight men aren't necessarily the straight men. And so it's like the person that's supposed to be the funny guy in the sense of Randall is the one being dumbfounded by the comments, and so it's really interesting change of course for him.
Yeah, it's the one time where Randall and the audience are on the same page.
Yes.
Because we're all, when Elias starts talking during that scene, we're all going, what the fuck is Pillow Pants?
Randall's got nothing to say because what can you say to them?
Yeah, exactly. And listeners, if you haven't seen the film, but for some reason you've hung on this long and you don't know what Pillow Pants means, we're not going to explain it. Just watch the movie. Do yourself a favor.
It is because really the funny part is Pillow Pants isn't the real punchline.
Exactly.
Oh, Lister Fiend. All right, so
it is really fun.
Now, our penultimate topic is Leonardo, New Jersey, some kind of weird blip in space and time where work days are all 12 hours long and there's no transition between night and day.
I pointed this out because Dave missed it. They clock in at 7 a.m. And do prep after that. And the store presumably, I would presume, opens at maybe 8.
Yeah, see, this was going to be my argument before you pointed out that you can see them clocking in at 7 a.m. They got there Yeah, my thinking was that they got there no later than 9 a.m. since they were doing breakfast prep. But if they clocked in at 7, they are there all day until closing. And this is just like in Clerks, where Randall comes in late, but Dante is there at 7 o'clock in the morning to open the quick stop,
right,
and doesn't leave until well after 9 o'clock at night. Now, in Clerks 2, Dante and Randall show up at movies at 7 a.m., stay there until close, and then are still there throughout the donkey show.
Close presumably being which is weird for a fast food restaurant. I estimate it at around 9 p.m. That's because for it to have been that, I posed this to Dave. For it to be that sunny at 7 a.m., I would presume it's in the months where things have sprung forward, where clocks have moved forward an hour. So that means that it's lighter until at least it's still kind of light. So that means when Dante goes off to try and find Becky, it's got to be around 8 p.m.
Yeah, and this is why I bring up the night and day thing. This happens in both films.
Yeah.
In the first Clerks, Dante and Randall go to Julie Dwyer's funeral in the middle of the afternoon. I think they specifically say like 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon. They are shown leaving the funeral and running back to Dante's car. It is still sunlight. We cut to them getting back to the store, and it is full dark. Now, in Clerks 2, Becky runs out of the store and drives away, and Dante starts chasing after her. Randall comes up and convinces Dante to go after her because Kinky Kelly is showing up.
It needs an hour to set up.
Yeah. So it is, again, full daylight as this is occurring. The next time we see Dante, it is full nighttime.
Yeah, there's a montage of what each character is up to, and Dante is driving around. It's dark. It is completely dark.
I am just convinced that Leonardo, New Jersey is some sort of weird hellhole.
Like it was somehow transported away from like Alaska.
Yeah, like there is no sun setting. The sun is there and then it's gone, and God help you. Just God help you if you live in Leonardo, New Jersey. You're going to work 12 to 14-hour days, 7 days a week, and you're never going to know when it's night or day.
The only thing that I can say in the favor of the timeline is they could have presumably supposed to have been stayed open later, and then they just closed for the donkey show. But again,
because Dante was leaving the next day.
But so. again, as you pointed out, they opened. For them to be there past like 12 hours is insane.
There are 4 employees total at this movie.
5, isn't there? Wait.
No, it's Dante and Randall who are there open to close.
Becky.
Elias and Becky.
You're right.
Who both show up like a mid-afternoon shifts.
Yeah, they're technically the second shift.
Yeah, but again, how do you run a fast food restaurant with 4 people?
Especially when 2 of them run off in the middle of the day to go go-karting.
Yeah, exactly. Or when they're all frequently going outside to have arguments with each other.
Again, they're not making this must be corporate owned, because it's not. It's even though it's in a place with high traffic, and they presumably have a lunch rush at least, they don't have any sort of other rushes apparently.
Yeah. I like how their lunch rush in the film also is treated like they're in the weeds, when it is a couple and 2 guys. That is their lunch rush.
And presumably other people had been in, but because there were people sitting down. But again, also,
and Becky was already pissed,
because Elias can't fry fries.
Yeah,
you left me all alone.
The concept of how this movie operates and stays open is a mystery.
It is baffling. And the concept of how Leonardo, New Jersey operates is baffling to me. All right, well, in the original notes that I took and sent to these guys, that was our last topic. But the more I thought about it, the more
Rosario Dawson?
No.
Oh, damn.
The more it occurred to me that you cannot talk about this film without talking about that scene. And I'm not talking about the donkey show.
Oh, okay. The jail?
Huh?
The jail?
No. There are 2 scenes that this movie is remembered for, and one of them is the donkey show.
Well, there's 3, because there's also the tuck.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about. Well, we mentioned briefly the Goodbye Horses scene.
We did, but yeah, it's a full homage
Is that my surprise?
to Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Is that my surprising?
I'm talking about Randall's racist tirade.
Well,
And this is what I was saying when I was talking about character derailment.
technically, it's more Randall finds out realizes his grandma's racist.
Yes, he finds this out by being full-on racist himself. I don't understand the logic of this scene.
It was semi-forgivable up to the point where Dante tells him that the phrase he uses is a slur against black people, but it was confused for Randall because his grandma would say that to him when he was being lazy. But then Randall decides, well, I'm gonna take it back, and he's like, you can't do that because you're not black.
I would say the scene is excusable all the way up until the point where 3 black people tell him that that phrase is racist, and he doubles down by saying, no, the N-word is racist.
Right.
By actually saying the N-word and then going on to list even more racial slurs.
He lists about 10 different slurs for black people.
In full view of 2 black customers and his black manager.
Well, what I meant by this scene being okay, I mean like the comedic logic of the scene in terms of Randall.
Yes. Even more confusing to me than, how stupid Randall has become over the last 10 years and how socially inept he's become is Elias jumping into the conversation by saying, did Randall just call Mr. Dante the N-word? Okay. There exists a level of stupidity for Randall to be saying this in full view of customers, much less black customers. Elias joining in is just taking this to a whole level of comedic stupidity and schadenfreudism.
I would argue that it's not him thinking of Randall as being dumb. It's him commenting, in a way, basically saying, oh, what horrible thing did Randall do now? He's kind of not numb to it exactly, but he's not surprised.
Right. And again, like I was saying, there's lazy and abrasive Randall, and then there's outright using racial slurs in front of black people Randall. There's that level of abrasiveness. That is it is a funny scene in spite of itself, but it's still
because of Wanda Sykes.
The only reason this scene works at all
Earthquake
is Earthquake and Wanda Sykes, and also Jeff Anderson's performance.
You can't taste racism.
Taste racism.
I mean, that scene has always just been baffling to me.
I understand what you're saying, but I think at least the logic to me is that Randall has quantified it in that, well, this one doesn't seem racial to me because my grandmother said it to me, but the other ones are because he knows they're offensive and about black people. Mm-hmm. So he's like. So he's arguing like, no, I didn't cross a line because I've quantified these are the horrible things, and he doesn't say them, and the movie doesn't use them in a way to just, we're getting away with them. Randall is almost. I'm not making a diagnosis here, but it's almost kind of like an Asperger's kind of way where it's like he has a rigid definition of where he is in terms of crossing the line here, and he feels he hasn't. Mm-hmm. And in
then
fact,
he realizes.
And then no, he doesn't. That's the thing.
Sort of. Well, no, sort of.
It comes around.
He wants to try and take it back.
Yeah.
And Dante's trying to tell him, it's like, you're a white guy. You don't get to do that, essentially. Mm-hmm. And then he's arguing, well, it's like, what? You're saying I can't do it because of the color of my skin? You're the racist.
Yes.
Again, I think Randall is just so hard programmed to be a dickish contrarian that he just goes in that direction immediately.
Yeah, it still just feels like character derailment for the sake of the joke, in my opinion.
And it does set up the end to
be fair, it is. It may be the most horrible thing he does.
Yeah, by and far.
Yeah, it is.
But Dante still has his back. But the fact that he's leaving, that means he doesn't have his back. So this is why I'm saying that it connects to the end when
I don't think it connects to anything other than we get a brick joke out of it.
But the
I will
idea
say
that-
you're right. There is meant to be a level of Randall's being very dumb about this.
Yeah.
But it's not so much. I don't think it's stupidity. It's just dumb in the sense of hard-headed obstructionism. It's just like, because Randall loves playing devil's advocate, and devil's advocate people will argue shit like this all the fucking time.
And he gets a whole new respect for Becky, because Rosario Dawson's character just goes off on him, and
As she should,
yes,
as a woman of
as a
color
manager.
and/or mixed race, and a manager.
So it's like she gains more respect from him, and then so when he's confronting Dante at the end, it's like he is the only person that would consider Randall a friend. And and said, "You're the only one. I'm too old for the friend thing anymore, and nobody would want me as a friend. I hate people,
especially if they came to movies on that particular day.
Especially, but Dante stays with them.
The only reason he didn't get fired on the spot is specifically because she can't afford to be down another person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's the sort of logic that only exists in movies, because realistically, Randall would have been fired immediately.
If not then later when he puts the sign on his shirt on the back of it.
Yeah, so I don't know, you probably read this story as well. So listeners, again, if you haven't seen this movie, you should to understand what we're talking about. But again, if you've made it this far without knowing what we're talking about, go to YouTube and just type in 3 words. Clerks 2 porch.
Yes.
And stop there.
There you go.
And watch this scene. You probably read this as well, Chris, but Jeff Anderson was the house he was staying in.
It was in the commentary. He was in a Days Inn that you can actually see from the restaurant.
Yes, as he was walking off the set one day, he was still wearing his costume, which he had written this racial slur on the back of. Walking home, and he said that a couple of nights when he would wear this costume home,
because he would forget, he wouldn't.
He'd forget he had it on. He'd be like, "Man, people in New Jersey throw more bottles than I remember."
And again, he'd get back and realize, "Oh no,
No."
But yeah, that scene has always been jarring to me for that reason, because it's just a new level to sink to for Randall.
The only reason it works at all in the movie is giving it to a guy like Jeff Anderson, who Kevin Smith trusts will do it the way it will work the best.
And also having Earthquake and Wanda Sykes there to bounce off of.
Yes, 100%.
The only 2 actors who Kevin Smith has ever allowed to completely improv their scene.
Yep.
Which was a good call, because they're brilliant. So,
baby, the judge said you can't be hitting people like that.
does anybody have any more final thoughts on Clerks 2? Stan?
I think we have one more View Askew movie to talk about, but for all intents and purposes, I think Clerks 2 was the ultimate story for him.
It should have been told. Yeah.
And I'm a fan of reboot, but I think it's just for them to revisit Jane's with their newfound friendship after all the stuff they went through, and I think it just gave Jay and Silent Bob a new thing. But the idea that Clerks 2, I think, is the View Askew universe, like you said, the peak of the universe, the where we wanted the universe to go, and what we wanted to see happen with the characters in this universe, and like you said, it's the bromance 1.0, 2.0. It's all of the bromances together is represented by Dante and Randall. So the idea that they come to this point, I think, is a beautiful way to end the mythos of the View Askewniverse.
Clerks 2 is the climax of the View Askewniverse, and Jay and Silent Bob Reboot is the denouement. Chris, what are your final thoughts on Clerks 2?
I think ultimately, especially at the end when Randall and Dante fully talk things out, I think you're right. It is very much the ultimate thing that he probably saw in his head when he was first making the first Clerks.
Yes.
And I think it's a very touching scene, or it's touching depending on whether or not you buy it. I mean, because I'm sure some people, maybe after everything that happens in the movie, could get to a point where they don't trust it coming from Randall, but
Yeah.
I do.
I love it.
And I get why Randall's scared. Randall's a guy. It's illustrated in the Lance Dodds scene, where the whole point is Randall's never been worried about the fact that he was a clerk or working in fast food. The idea that other people view his station in life as a low one never bothered him, because he had everything he needed to be content. And not just content, but to honestly, even though he comes off as a misanthrope, happy with where he's at. And so he's there. So he never, of course, he never expressed it until finally at the end of the movie. But he's just terrified of the fact of what is my life without Dante. He's like, Dante really is like the rock of his of a lot of his world.
Yeah.
As a really good friend is.
Yeah.
It's the cornerstone of his foundation.
Yeah.
And I have to, and we probably don't need to talk about it, but the idea that the happiest I've ever seen a Kevin Smith character ever be is in the go-kart scene.
Yeah.
When we see Randall and Dante riding around in go-karts, and the face that Jeff Anderson has and is expressing and just the ultimate joy. This is Randall at his most vulnerable, and just, this is what makes me happy. I'm driving go-karts with my best friend, and just the face he has, and it's not actor, character happiness. I think there's a joy in Jeff Anderson at this point.
I think a lot of people miss the point. I know maybe it can seem like it, but I think a lot of people miss the point that Smith was trying for with the ending, which was, I mean, he says they were always at their happiest at the quick stop, because it was just, it was the work was drudgery in a way, but it was the companionship that they thrived on.
Yeah.
And it's that point's meant to be driven home early by confronting Lance Dodds.
Yeah.
And dealing with the fact is like, oh yeah, no, he's super successful, he's great, and it's like, but the point is like, yeah, but he's
a petty dick.
He's a petty dick who wandered into a fast food place to dump on people who aren't doing as well.
Or he viewed as less than him.
Yeah. I mean, is that the actions of a happy person?
Right.
Yeah, so it's like, and then the point was, it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter where you are at financially or socioeconomically. It's like, if you find what makes you happy and makes you want to keep going, then you're where you can be. You don't have to feel like you're missing anything.
Yeah.
And you can walk next door and be with your best friend.
Yeah. But I understand why people think the other way.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, I'll just say one last thing, which is that near the beginning of the film, there is a very prolonged conversation about whether or not you should ever go ass to mouth. Guess what literally happens during the donkey show?
And guess which character is in total favor?
Guess which member of this podcast has probably seen a fucking donkey show right over here? Stan, if people want to reach out to you online, where can they do that at?
I'm at Facebook somewhere, and I guess I'm the Stan Lee on Facebook. So
yeah, you're the only one, bud.
So, which is unfortunate, but I am now.
Chris, if people want to reach out to you online and they don't want to get somebody else's Twitter handle, where can they find you at?
I'm on. Well, you've buried the lead there, didn't you?
Yes,
I'm on Twitter.
I'm on to you.
I wasn't going to do that this time. But I'm on Twitter, which is basically the equivalent of the internet kiosk with the filter disabled that Randall uses in the movie, at Chris the OK.
All right, and if you want to follow me online, you can do that on Instagram at DB Hensley. If you want to find out more about Long Walk Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us. You can see more of our original work on our YouTube channel and also listen to our backlog of episodes. The links to both of those are in the show notes. If you enjoy this show, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you are listening on. So thank you very much for listening.
Peace out.
Yo, let's hurry this up so I can get my cow tipper on.